All right, guys, we're finally up to round 11. We're just out of Pride round, and we're finally into the last two rounds of the home and away season. And we still have a chance of Port Adelaide, a very long shot, but we're still technically in the race. So, without further ado, let's have a look at how those games went. And the reason why we're still in a chance is because we totally smashed Hawthorn. I thought there was a chance could win, but to smash Hawthorn by the biggest margin under their current coach, or under I think in their history, they've never conceded this many points before. It was one of I think it's probably the best game Port Adelaide's ever played. But as much as I want to gush all about that game, we have some other games to talk about. And obviously, same night, West Coast totally destroyed the Cats. I thought they were the stronger side, but to keep the Cats to 2 goals, wow. Yeah, Geelong looking kind of shaky going to the end of the year. Meanwhile, we had Melbourne, who put on an absolute masterclass against Sydney. Their defence was incredible, and they easily won by 44. I don't think Sydney kicked a goal for the whole latter 3 quarters, which is insane. Then my prediction that Adelaide was going to keep North Melbourne to their lowest score was kind of ridiculous, as I think North Melbourne kicked, 5 or so goals in the first quarter. They absolutely destroyed Adelaide, and any hope of a late Adelaide comeback was, I don't know, I think it might have been overstated, but yeah, wow. Then we had the Freo GWS game where GWS was almost winning for points in this game. It was way closer than I thought it was going to be. And then, oh man, what? Because Carlton seems to have joined Sydney and Essendon in the crashing out here, as St Kilda just continues. To be honest, this is at least making that Port Adelaide loss to them look less bad, because damn, St Kilda has just been on a tear for the latter part of this year. Then, on the other hand, on a game I got the margin the other way around, rather than under-predicting the margin, I over-predicted this one. Brisbane really missed the chance to build a percentage builder there. They were terribly inaccurate in front of goals, and only won by 38, when I think my margin of 60 would have been more likely had they just kicked a few more straighter shots. Then Richmond obviously, again, proved to be more classy than Collingwood. I could see that coming. And at least I actually got the margin roughly right on this game, unlike the other ones. And then finally, once again, I underpredicted the margins as the Bulldogs absolutely smoked the Suns, who once again couldn't kick a goal. Oh boy. I think we got a pretty good idea of who's going to be the Wooden Spooners this year. But regardless, let's get into the round 11 games. And once again, our lovely Port Adelaide girls are once again Friday night, 7:15. But this time we're at Norwood because we're the away team. As we're finally here, it's the showdown time. And arguably the most competitive showdown ever. Obviously, this is a must-win game. We want to keep that slim finals chance alive. And it's also a must-win game because we need to finally show that Little Sister has outgrown Big Sister. Obviously, the Crows will be looking for a big bounce back after that horrendous performance against North Melbourne. So I am a little nervous that we're definitely going to be facing a resurgence Crows. But if this team can play like it did against Hawthorn last Friday, we should be in with a good chance. However, as we know, I'm predicting against us in every game because it seems to jinx us into a win. But if we look at our history, every time we've played the Crows with half the margin, so it was, I think, a 60-point win to them in the first season, then a 30-point, then a 14-point. So if we follow that logic, the Crows will probably win by about 7. So let's go with that. All right, now we jump over to the first Saturday game with Sydney versus West Coast at Henson Park. Obviously, I think the last time these teams met, Sydney won, which was, I think, last year, and the odds are on Sydney. I think this was actually the last game. It was the round 11 game, the final round game last year, which, yeah, that's right, West Coast was crashing out. But West Coast definitely not crashing out, unlike Sydney, who really haven't had wins since that Carlton win, but that was their one win in a while. And meanwhile, West Coast, if they're keeping Geelong to scores that low, yeah, you definitely have your odds on West Coast, even though I think Sydney still are a decent team. But man, it is, yeah, it's difficult. Even if it is their home game, I'm just feeling West Coast on this. West Coast has had an absolutely solid year, giving me a lot of vibes about what we were like last year. They're just ploughing through these middle of the road teams and doing it with ease, and that's why I think West Coast will win by 15. All right, Essendon versus Hawthorn. Well, has the Hawthorn injury list finally caught up with them? Because they have quite a substantial injury list, but they kept winning games until they played us, and then we absolutely bulldozed them. So, is there a possibility that Essendon might be able to... Because they've had their games. Obviously, they had their game where they kept North Melbourne goalless for a quarter, and, I don't know how much you can put on Brisbane, but they definitely kept Brisbane to a score lower than they should have. Can Essendon get that last gasp to, possibly take out Hawthorn? Obviously, we're at Windy Hill, which is notoriously hard to score goals, as Brisbane's shown. Hawthorn is an infamous kicking side, but I know there's a few chances that Essendon can pull an upset here, but I really shouldn't be talking myself out of it. I think Hawthorn will win by, let's say, 9, because once again, they always seem to do this unless they're playing a team that has Adelaide in their name. All right, 5:05 on the Saturday, Fremantle Oval, Fremantle versus Richmond. So once again, Fremantle obviously is, in that last-ditch effort like us to try and get into the top 8, and obviously they'll need a win here against Richmond, who... Richmond definitely have been looking better at the end of this year. They're definitely feeling a lot more like that team that made finals last year. Obviously, beating Adelaide, beating Collingwood. Can Richmond beat Fremantle? I don't know. I'm not really. I think Fremantle, even though they have these weird games like the game last week where they almost lost to GWS, I feel like they'll just find a way to win. Remember, they also are a team who bet Melbourne, so clearly they're not rubbish or anything. So for that reason, I'll say Freo win, but let's keep the margin low. Let's say Richmond gives them a run for their money and Fremantle only win by 8. All right, now really exciting game, Brighton Homes Arena, 7:15 on the Saturday. Great timing, by the way. Brisbane versus Melbourne. Obviously, these two teams are duking it out for what potentially could be a top 2 or 3 slot for these teams. Obviously, Melbourne hasn't been tested super hard this year. I think the hardest team they played all year might have been, St Kilda or someone, which I believe they smashed. So, and obviously they just smashed Sydney. But on the other hand, the two teams that bet Melbourne were Fremantle and Port Adelaide, who both got pretty badly smashed by Brisbane. And so for this reason, you feel like there's more... you give more of the edge to Brisbane on this game. But man, this is going to be an amazing game. But I think, we'll keep it close. We'll say Brisbane wins by 4 in an absolutely nail-biter of a contest. All right, let's get to the Sunday games. 1:05, Mars Stadium. So we're going to Ballarat for this one, which will be fun. Don't know if they've finished renovating the stadium yet, but regardless. Obviously, the Dogs are on quite a bit of a surge recently. Like, outside of the game against us, they have been destroying teams. But mind you, they've all been teams at the bottom of the ladder. Obviously, Geelong is a much more major team. So the question is, are the Dogs just bullies who can just beat up on the weak teams? Or are they a genuine finals contender? And obviously, Geelong will definitely be looking to want to bounce back from their West Coast game. But is that loss to West Coast indicating that they're crashing out like the other teams? I don't know. I'm feeling Geelong for some reason. Maybe it's because I saw how bad the Western Bulldogs were at the start of the year and how good Geelong were in the middle part of the year. And for this reason, for some reason, I'm just feeling Geelong will win by around 13. All right, North Hobart Oval, also at 1:05. It's a bit annoying these two games are at the same time, but regardless, we have North Melbourne playing St Kilda. So obviously St Kilda is on a massive win streak at the moment. They are pretty much looking like they're going to finish top either 5th or 6th on the ladder, which is insane. But unfortunately, they might be an unstoppable force, but they're coming up against an unmovable object in the form of North Melbourne, who, look, as much as you can give St Kilda all this credit for their amazing run, they're not North Melbourne. And, I think North Melbourne will win this game pretty easy. We'll say by 30, because they seem to always win by around that margin. And if they win that game, they will lock up the minor premiers. So I think we can say by the end of this weekend, we will have the minor premiers locked up as we go into round 12. But before then, Carlton versus GWS. So, Icon Park, 3:05. This is a game I will definitely be watching with a lot of interest because, if my math is correct, Carlton is in 8th, and they are probably the only team we have a chance to catch. But we can only catch them and steal their 8th spot if they lose to GWS. If they beat GWS, we won't be able to catch them. So, GWS, I need you to win. Even though I don't have much faith in you to win, please beat Carlton for us. Well, actually, don't think you did beat them 2 years ago, but I don't know. GWS, if they can give Fremantle a run for their money, maybe they can do it. But look, as much as I want them to win, I think Carlton's going to win by about 10. But you never know. All right, finally, Gold Coast versus Collingwood at Bond University Oval. Like, we're playing at a university field. Like, I look at this on Google Maps. It's just a university field. There's no grandstand or anything here. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, why Carrara Stadium isn't available, but and also the time 4:05. Isn't it normally 5:05? Yeah, actually, it's probably Queensland, not daylight savings, but. Yeah, a weird location for a game. But regardless, let's actually talk about the game itself. We have Collingwood versus Gold Coast. Once again, it's another spoon ball. I feel like we've had 17th versus 18 multiple times. I think Gold Coast has always been one of those two teams. I mean, I think it was Gold Coast for us, and it was Gold Coast versus Richmond or something like that. It's been quite funny how many of these games end up being spoon ball. But regardless, obviously, both these teams have had pretty bad runs. Obviously, Collingwood's pretty miserable loss to Richmond last year, and also the smashing by the Bulldogs a few weeks before then. But for every bad loss Collingwood's had, I feel like Gold Coast has just done that bit worse. And for this reason that I think if Brisbane versus Melbourne's going to be probably the best game of this weekend, this is probably going to be the worst. It's going to be a scrappy affair, low scoring, and I think at the end Collingwood will win by, say, about 5, maybe under a kick. And unfortunately, I think Gold Coast will unfortunately be locked into the wooden spoon, just like North Melbourne will probably be walking out of this round as the minor premiers. So that's hopefully maybe Gold Coast can avoid that. But if Gold Coast avoids it, then I think Collingwood's going to be confirmed 2-time wooden spooners, which will also suck for them. But regardless, to repeat through my predictions, I have the Crows winning by 7, West Coast by 15, Hawthorn by 9, Fremantle by 8, Brisbane by 4. Geelong by 13, North Melbourne by 30, and to win the minor premiership, Carlton to win by 10, and Collingwood to win by 5, with Gold Coast being resigned to the wooden spoon. Alright, come back next time to see how my predictions went. We still haven't got a perfect game yet, but until then, let's go Power!